Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat and NBA content. My name is Amir. For today's episode, we have a special guest returning to the show for the second time. We have Trevor Booth. So if you guys don't remember, Trevor has been a Phoenix Suns writer and publisher for 4 years now. He's also writing and he's also a reporter for the Phoenix Mercury for SB Nation. So happy that you're back on. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Amir. I know we're recording right now during the finals, so we're antsy to get to that, but we got to check in with our teams first because it's an important time right now.
It is for both of us. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason. Shams basically said this could be one of the craziest off seasons in general, with other players like Giannis potentially requesting a trade. He hasn't done that yet. We'll see. But yes, we are recording this during the NBA Finals. I'm going to probably post this tomorrow to preface that. But let's talk about the Suns season real quick, though. So before we get started on specific rumors and why I have you on, last time you were here, we talked about Jimmy Butler potentially going to the Suns, and now this is a Miami Heat channel. I do want to talk about the Kevin Durant rumors and his potential of joining the Miami Heat. But first, the Suns had a very disappointing season. They missed not only the playoffs, but also the play-in tournament as the most expensive team in the NBA last season. And so from your perspective, what do you think went wrong? Like, what were some of those key factors that led to the Suns' underperformance last season?
Definitely. I think we just talked about the payroll, exceeding 400 million and it being one of the bigger, if not one of the biggest disappointment in sports playoff NBA history. This team struggled big time. I think, looking at last year, even before this season started, Amir, it was evident to me that they were potentially going to have some problems. I think you could tell the roster wasn't a fit this first season with the big three. And even though they made some trades to try to make some things work and kind of rough it out or make it work around the edges this season, the Suns weren't the team that anybody expected them to be. If I could point one thing, it would be the injuries. I know that the coaching change and kind of having now a fourth coach in 4 years is something that would disrupt continuity. But I think with Bradley Beal being injured as much as he was, Kevin Durant missed some time this year after they started 8-1 and had some things going together. I think that being the big thing, and not being able to win and kind of put things together and putting people in elevated roles, I think that's kind of one of the main things that didn't allow this team from being what it needed to be.
I also think Bradley Beal's no trade clause also
Yes.
didn't allow you guys to improve and get him off the books. And what is he making? Was he making like 52 last season or 50?
Yeah,
It's like 52 this
yeah,
upcoming, somewhere in that ballpark range, right? He has like
right.
3 years, 150 million left, like averaging 50
Mhm,
per.
right.
Yeah, so like offloading him theoretically for players that are like 3-and-D players because defense was an issue. Just having the depth has always kind of been an issue the last 2 years. Once you guys got rid of Chris Paul and Ayton and a few other players, Bridges, Cam Johnson, and all those guys, like depth has been an issue. So trading a Bradley Beal for like a Bruce Brown type of player or a Dorian Finney-Smith or a Keon Ellis or some of those types of guys, that can help with both scoring and defense, I think is something you guys desperately needed. But Bradley Beal earned his no trade clause apparently, as his agent, has said in the past. So I think that was the biggest issue. But speaking of him too, real quick, so I think John Gambadoro said that the Phoenix Suns reportedly don't want Bradley Beal to return. What are your thoughts on that? Because it doesn't like you guys ideally want to buy him out, right, to get that off the books. But again, you can't do that without his blessing. Like, what do you think that relationship looks like now? Because if they're saying this publicly, I don't know if it's coming from insiders or from the team directly, but like, why would Bradley Beal even want to come back? Like, if he's not even wanted there. So, what are your thoughts on that report that just came out, I think, yesterday or today?
Yeah, I did see that from Gambo today. I think the relationship has completely deteriorated. I think there were times last season where fans would be really frustrated with Bradley Beal, not only in the arena but on social media. And there was a post that his wife actually put out where fans were at the game like heckling him in front of his kids and saying profanities and stuff. So from a fan relationship with Bradley Beal, it's not good. I imagine with the time he missed, there were some questions about like, okay, are we going to get Brad from night to night from the players, and like, how is that going to look from one night to the next? Are we going to be able to have the talent from Brad that they need in order to get to the next step in their season? And they weren't able to get that consistently. So I think that just given what's happened, it's in the Suns' best interest, and that's what Gambo is saying, to move on from Bradley Beal. But Bradley Beal holds the cards, so even if they, make this decision, I think, to do the wave and stretch, it's got to be with his blessing. So what that's going to look like in terms of Bradley Beal's future with the Suns, I don't know, but it's something that the Suns fully don't have in their control, which is a scary thing, and not a very optimistic thing for a team looking to go into a retool here.
Yeah, it seems like the future is bleak for the Suns, but also like if you can get off of his contract, and I want to transition into Kevin Durant, if you can get off of his contract, I mean, ideally between the two, you still would want Kevin Durant to be on this team and try to figure it out and get a third better option than Bradley Beal, or even build around Booker and Kevin Durant, but then add a ton of rotational pieces, kind of like how the Pacers are built. They have their top two and Halliburton and Siakam, who I don't think are that amazing. I know Halliburton's having a good run right now, but
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have KD and Book between Halliburton and Siakam. No offense to those two, but they have a good formula where they have a bunch of great role players in that depth and like obviously some youth. So I think that could help you guys. So it's not. I don't think it's actually bleak because getting off of Kevin and Bradley could be bleak though. Then because I don't know how
Yeah.
much firepower you're actually going to have, but it's still not a bad thing from the owner's perspective when you're getting off 104 million off the books. Like that still is a good thing to. I would say in that case, if you lose Kevin Durant, it's more of a rebuild than a retool. You're rebuilding around
Yeah.
Booker. If Kevin stays for some reason, then I see that more as a retool. But what are your thoughts on that though? Like, is he all but gone? Like, how is that relationship? And I know there has been speculation. Like everybody thinks it's a 95% chance that he's gone, right?
Right.
Windhorse
Right.
said it's like all but like 99%. But is he going to get traded in your opinion this offseason? Or is there a world where he stays? And if so, I've heard that Suns are trying to lower their asking price for
Mm.
him recently. Like, if that's the case, what do you think has changed? Like, have they been testing him this off season, this short off season, and haven't really been able to get the assets that they want in a future trade?
Yeah, I would say for all intents and purposes, we can, safely say in Phoenix that Kevin Durant's going to be gone this offseason. I think he's played his last game as a Phoenix Sun. It's unfortunate how it ended because after the trade deadline, with the ankle injury, it really seemed like he wanted to put in work and try to make things work to get to the Suns to the playoffs. So, with that being said, I don't think it's something that he necessarily saw coming with the trade deadline and how they kind of dangled his name out there, and it got out, about the Warriors and him not wanting to go back for. I think he just didn't want to go back, maybe optics, or can't remember the exact reason. So maybe it's not that, but I think yeah, this offseason they're going to move on from him. I've talked to a couple people trying to figure out what's going on that are somewhat close to the organization, and it seems like to me that Houston and now San Antonio is gaining a lot of steam. San Antonio is the team that's being out there as a potential place for Kevin Durant. Um, I think just with this retool that they're looking to do, Durant wasn't really mentioned in the reports about getting with this new head coach, Jordan Knott. I think that's cleared based on what, not necessarily what the team has said, but based on what's been, kind of mentioned in the reporting that I've seen that Kevin Durant's gone. So I don't think it's necessarily something that the Suns should be the most proud of just because of how it ended and because of the way Kevin Durant conducted himself. I think he did a really good job here. But I think just because of the trade deadline, that seems to be the way things are moving.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, in your opinion, what is the ideal return that the Suns are looking for in a Durant trade? Are they focused more on future assets like picks because they obviously had to unload all of their picks? Was it for the combination of the Chris Paul, Bradley Beal trades separately that like they lost most of the picks there, and Kevin Durant obviously getting mostly Kevin Durant. What am I saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, they traded most of their picks for Kevin Durant, of course, but even the Chris Paul, like those, like you still traded a lot of picks over the last few years between those three players. But are they focused more on getting the draft capital back, or do they focus on bringing in players who can immediately contribute and help Devin Booker in that retool or rebuild? So, like, what do you think a good offer is
Yeah.
for the Suns?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. I know with Houston, right? I think the idea or the thing that Suns fans would hope for is you get your picks back, right? That they own or at least get some of that control back that you lost in the KD trade. I just don't know how possible that is with KD being at the age that he is, 1 year left on his deal. How much are they going to really realistically be able to get in return? And I think the best case scenario would be to would be able to get some draft picks, the players to go along with Booker too. But I'm kind of skeptical, just given that the Suns have a first year GM now who hasn't had a lot of NBA front office experience. Matt Ishbia is going to be really involved. How much are they going to be able to get back? I think is a concern. I think we all know they want to get the picks back and maybe some players to help book, but what the package is going to look like, will it be that great? That's what I'm kind of concerned about for the Suns.
Do you see any teams like offering two picks? Because like it depends on the player too.
Yeah,
Because there's going to be like a lot of teams that have expiring contracts or bad contracts they could stitch together,
right.
or you can get a solid type of player that does make 30 mil or so, and then you stitch together a couple other good role players. And if that's the case, I don't see other teams offering more than one, in my opinion. But do you see a
Right.
world where anybody offers two first round picks?
I, yeah, it's hard. I think, again, I think it's really going to come down to, how the Suns are able to work with Kevin Durant on this thing. And like, is he gonna kind of dictate where this is going to go? How much leverage do the Suns really have? I don't really think they have a lot. I think it's probably unrealistic that they're going to get two picks if, based on what I understand and kind of how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, because he only has 1 year left
Yeah.
on his contract. So like, I mean, does he stick it out for a year? Like, if for some
Yeah.
reason you guys do keep him, it's like people can wait, and he's also people could wait to say like, I don't think anybody's gonna wait, but
Yeah.
he did
Yeah.
come off an injury. He's gonna turn 37.
You're right.
He's had a big injury history recently with the whole Achilles tear and all that, but he's come back strong from it. So um, he does look elite, but his numbers were great. 26 points, almost 27 if you round up. Shot like 42% from three still. Like good rebounder, underrated defender. But I just think a lot of his game is now like that mid-range pull-up game and getting to the free throw line. He's not getting to the rim as much, like which naturally happens when you get older and have had injuries like he's had. He's not the same three-level scorer. Does that resonate with you as well? I mean, you watched way more than I did,
Yeah.
obviously, than last season, but is his offense going to be sustainable, do you think?
I think so. I think just given the skill set that he has and the way he's able to, I mean, he still played great basketball. I think he would have made an all NBA team this year, had he met that minimum number of games. I think, with kind of the way that he's been able to consistently get to his spots, I think, he was asked to do a little bit more than probably he expected, or maybe some people, fans expected to do in terms of being a ball handler and kind of initiating. I think if he's just allowed to be a scorer, like I think the Houston fit would make a lot of sense. I think the San Antonio fit would make some sense too. But if he can get set up, he's so good. He's got the most uncontested shot in NBA history. I still think he can get 23, 25 points for the next 4 to 5 years, and probably beyond that, just depending on his role, his health. Yeah, I think he's definitely still a 24, 25 point per game scorer for the next 3, 4 years.
24-point game score. That's better than anybody on the Miami Heat. I mean, Tyler Hero
Yeah,
got close. 20 in his prime, 25 years
yeah,
old after he had his All-Star season. think Tyler was like 23 point something. So we haven't had a 24-point game score on this Miami Heat team since LeBron. I think that,
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, right? Probably like 2014. I mean, we had D
Yeah.
Wade
Okay.
obviously before that, but
Right.
there was no one else on this roster that has scored 24 plus points. Jimmy Butler never did it once. Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler
Wow.
didn't need to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
he load managed in the regular season, so he could, be rested for the playoff, those 3-4 magical playoff runs.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
Miami Heat, he only averaged 22 point something maximum. So this Miami
Hmm.
Heat team desperately needs help scoring. They're always a top 10 defensive rated team, even in a bad offseason this year where Jimmy Butler missed a ton of games and obviously got suspended a bunch before he ultimately got traded midseason. Who Jimmy Butler is still pretty solid defender when he puts his mind to it. But
Yeah.
the Miami Heat finished 9. Like that wasn't great this season. Last season they were top 5 in defensive rating, but offensive rating they've been bottom 10 for the last few seasons. And in terms of points per game, 26 this season, 27 the year before. We need help. This is a Miami Heat podcast. So let's transition to Kevin Durant and the Miami Heat.
Sure.
When he first got traded to the Suns, do you remember the two teams he said? Miami and Phoenix. Those were his two teams he wanted to get traded to. We didn't have the assets back then to do it. He went to the Phoenix Suns, and we missed out on him. And we've tried to obtain him even before he went to the Warriors back in 2016 or whatever it was, 15 when he went to the Warriors. And we
Yeah.
missed out on that ultimately as well. But the Miami Heat love Kevin Durant. And we were listed as a top destination. I'm going to assume that we would be able to get a phone call and he would consider us. But do you think a trio, if we can get him, do you think a trio of KD, Bam, Tyler Hero, and whatever pieces we have left on that team can compete in the East based on how open the East potentially is going to be next season? One, with the Giannis trade, depends where he goes. He theoretically can go West. He wants to stay East, but if he goes to Toronto, which there's been speculation about that, like, good luck with that. Like, him and Scotty Barnes, I'm not worried about that, right?
Right.
But
Right.
Jason Tatum tore his Achilles. Like, he's most likely out for the year. They are going to be the highest tax team in the history of basketball next season. They're going to have to trade Porzingis or Holiday or White or Brown or someone. So they're going to fall out of favor. The Knicks just fired Thibs, and like Lillard tore his Achilles, and they might lose Giannis. Like, it seems so open. But do you think that trio could do damage? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think on paper and the plausibility makes a lot of sense. Like there's a lot of firepower there. I think KD and Bam would be a lot of fun to watch, Olympic teammates, right? And Tyler Hero aspiring to be that. I just question, where's Kevin's heart at right now? Given that the situation is a bit different than it was a couple years ago. Still having some. Not saying that he's not, the player, not capable of being the player he is the next couple of years, but he is older, and so at the time it was maybe a little bit more of some MVP type years from him when he was traded here to Phoenix, and now it's kind of the twilight years of his career. I think he realizes that, and so what's it going to be at this point? I think based on with Kevin Durant's desire, based on everything I'd read to stay here before the trade deadline, it seems like he wants to go out on his own terms, whatever that's going to look like. And knowing KD, he's always been a guy who likes to just play basketball and let everything else take care of itself.
Sure.
So I think at this point the fit is absolutely a basketball fit, but what's it going to look like for Kevin Durant post retirement? Um, that maybe that made sense for Phoenix. It didn't work out. Whatever the case may be, I think Miami, who knows? But that's just something to consider. And I wonder if that changes his outlook for where he's going to want to go or where the Suns are going to be able to send him this offseason.
Who wouldn't want to retire in Miami?
Yeah. Fair
Sunny,
point. I'd
sunny
want to retire in
Miami,
Miami.
beautiful women, the beaches, the weather. It's like
Yeah.
one of the top cities. Kevin Durant is on Twitter. He could be hollering at
Yeah.
some girls, at
Yeah.
South Beach. Who knows? But I mean, I like the idea, but I think it's a little too late at this point. The only reason I'm more optimistic is because of all the reasons I said. The East is
Yeah.
open. If Jason Tatum didn't tear his Achilles, I don't think the Heat would have been able to bypass them. Even the Cavs can retool a little bit and make some tweaks. I know they're going to possibly lose Ty Jerome and some other pieces, so they can even improve, right? And they're a tough out. Like even though they lost to the Pacers, I don't know if Kevin Durant would be enough. And I know you guys apparently in this report that came out yesterday said that you guys were looking for a center and that you guys would want Khalil Ware. And so as a Miami Heat fan,
Mm,
I would do it only if it meant that the Heat would have to trade no first round picks. Like Khalil Ware is the first round pick. He was on the all rookie team this year, has a lot of potential as a 7-footer, can shoot, the three ball, like he's a good rim protector, has a lot of potential.
yeah.
I just don't know if I want to trade him for a 37-year-old Kevin Durant. It's also on a
Right.
1-year deal. Like, what is that second contract, last contract going to
Mm,
look like? How much do you want to pay him at age 38, 39,
sure.
age 40? How much longer does Kevin Durant want to play for?
Yeah.
So, but if you can keep Khalil Ware, if you can keep Bam and Tyler, and you have that four, then
Yeah.
you figure it out at that point. You can take
Oh yeah.
Jaime Jaquez. You guys can take Jovic. You guys can take, in that case, it probably would take 2 first-round picks, I think, to get him to
Hmm.
Miami. So,
Sure.
which could be enticing for the Suns, right? It's up to them theoretically. So it's 2 first-round picks. Those guys, then we could throw in Andrew Wiggins, who's not a horrible player that can play next to Booker as a 6'7", wing player, NBA champion, one-time All-Star. He makes $30 million, and then we can, round that out with Duncan Robinson, who comes off an expiring, or he has a non-guaranteed, partial guaranteed contract. So you can
Right.
keep him as a sharpshooter next to Devin Booker, perhaps, or coming off the bench, or you just waive him and you save some salary cap. Like,
Hmm.
so there's possibilities. I just don't know if I'm personally sold on it, but I still think Kevin
Yeah.
Durant would make this team much better because
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, I was just going to add one thing. I think, going back to what I was saying about Katie's time with the Suns, like, it's just really unfortunate how it ended because I think a lot of people envision Katie retiring here. And then just with the way things went, like it just completely, the wheels fell off the wagon, like really bad.
yeah,
So, I think this might be, I don't know if it is a shock to him. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it's definitely not what I, foresaw coming. Like when the trade first happened, and Matt Ishbia said in an interview that they intended to keep Kevin Durant with the Suns, long term before the trade deadline and everything else. So who knows what this is actually like? But yeah, no, I think for the Heat too, you have to ask yourself like, is it worth it to go get a 36, 37-year-old Kevin Durant like you mentioned, who has all the injury history that he does, and I think Kevin's a tremendous basketball player, but I think at times there's been questions about um, let me try to say this correctly. Is he maximizing not only the growth of himself but of his teammates? And yeah, I think that's been a question of his from the outside. Again, not this is not any like me being inside info. I think I'm just saying this more so. Well, I am just saying this more so as a question. So, what
yeah,
is it going to look like for him? What's going to be the right fit for him? Only he knows. And the Suns are going to have to work with him to get that.
yeah. So before we close,
Yeah,
what's your prediction? Where do you think he will end up?
yeah,
And also, you mentioned a few teams that he's been linked to, but you can choose either those teams or if there's like a dark horse, like where do you think he would be the best fit, but where do you think he's
yeah,
ultimately going to go? And that could be both, right? Where he
yeah.
goes could be the best fit, but what's your thoughts on that before we close?
If I had to make a prediction right now, I would say San Antonio, just based on what I've heard. But the thing that intrigues me, Amir, is like and I know Gambo shut it down today, so there might be not likelihood to this at all. But if he did go to New York with the Knicks,
Mm,
and kind of
yeah.
add to what they did, I would be
Yeah.
fascinated to see that. When I saw that possibility come about, and Devin Booker reuniting with Karl Anthony Towns, if that were a thing, I think when I read that, I'm like, that seems to make sense. Like that's something that both parties could be interested in.
Oh,
Um,
Kentucky Bros.
you're
There we
right,
go.
the Kentucky
Yeah, yeah.
Bros. Yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen again, based on just what's been reported, but that's something that would be intriguing. So if New York can make that happen, I think watch out. They would be again, a contender in the East to make the finals, make a run at the title.
That was the speculation for Towns, though. That's like,
Yeah.
how are you going to beat that player wise? Like,
Right.
yeah, I don't think Towns is that amazing, but
Right.
he's a top 5 center, top
Yeah.
4 center in the NBA still.
Yeah.
Um, you know, he's not the best in the playoffs. He had a better playoff run this season with the Knicks than he's had in the past, right? Than he did
Yeah.
with the Wolves, but he still didn't have crazy numbers or like, I mean, yes, he helped them win certain games, but
Mhm.
it was mostly Brunson. Like Brunson couldn't carry them to the championship. It's hard to have a guy who's like 6'1" or under
Right.
and being your 1A. But there was games where OG was good. There was like Mikal Bridges games that were good. Like, of course, Towns was there, but still, I don't see anybody trading that high of a caliber player that can
Yeah.
beat a offer if the Knicks are offering just Towns. And their salaries, I think Kevin Durant's probably making more, right? So they would probably
Yeah.
have to add in
Mhm.
10 million more or so because
Right.
you guys are a second apron team, right? So you can't.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
think you can't take less, right? It has to match.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like so, that would be intriguing for sure because
Yeah.
Brunson and KD, and if you
Yeah.
still keep Bridges and you still keep OG and you
Yeah.
still keep like all that depth, like off the bench, like you have Hartenstein still, or no, Hartenstein's on the Jesus Christ, he's playing the finals today.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the Thunder. You have you have Robinson.
Right.
That's a tough squad right there. So, and even the
Yeah.
Spurs piece makes sense. Like him and
Yeah.
Wemby is going to be insane. Like
Yeah.
that length, like that skill set for those that would be the skinniest front court in the history, the
Yeah.
longest and skinniest, weakest front court, but the most skilled front court in NBA history. Like
Oh my
literally,
gosh.
you could break both their wrists, like snapping like a pencil, basically like twigs. But
Yeah.
but both can do step back fadeaway threes,
Yeah.
which is unreal. And Kevin Durant's basically 7 foot, so
Yeah.
a 7 footer next to Wemby
Yeah.
that is a 3 level scorer, and you have De'Aaron Fox, and you have the Rookie of the Year Castle, and you have the number 2 pick.
Hmm.
That's yeah. Look, that's like automatic. I mean, hopefully Wemby comes back healthy, but that's
Right.
like automatic contender for the Spurs. Like even though the West is very tough, but like that puts if you get Kevin Durant, I think that puts them at like top 3 potential in the West.
Yeah. No, for
Ceiling,
sure.
ceiling probably 3. Would you say? Like I don't know, the 3 to
Yeah.
5 range depends who they get as a
Yeah.
second pick.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like Steph Castle there too. Like I really liked him and what he's done so far. So yeah, that's a team that would be really tough to beat.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, guys. So you heard it here first from Trevor, NBA insider. Phoenix Suns, the Miami Heat are not getting Kevin Durant. We have no shot. We're both going to have horrible seasons next year. It's going to be bleak, and we will be able to commiserate next season. Maybe I can get Trevor back on if there's any other speculation or
Yeah.
rumors. If KD for some reason mentions the Miami Heat, maybe I can bring you back on. But also would love to have you on maybe for like a post game. We're gonna play you what 2 times a year we play against West and East teams play each other usually 2 times, so home and
Yeah.
away. Yeah, so if you ever want to hop on again, maybe we could do like a post game if you're up for it. But really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And before we hop off, just want to make sure you can let the audience know where they can find you online or where they can find your work.
Yeah, if you want to follow me, my name right there, Trevor. Middle initial is M, so Trevor M Booth on X. It's where you can see everything Phoenix Mercury WNBA coverage, and then we'll roll into the Suns in October. So still going, still grinding.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for the
Yeah,
time. Appreciate it.
thank you.